Okay, next technique we're gonna do is called wet on wet. So for this technique, I want you to use a mop brush, which is just like a big heavy brush that's gonna hold a lot of water. And we're gonna get the paper wet. And then wherever we put the watercolor, it's going to kind of bleed out into that area. So this is a nice way where you can create hard edges. So if you look, when we were doing wet watercolor on dry paper, that's a very hard edge, right? It's creating this really hard, crisp edge. By doing wet on wet, it gives a chance to create a really soft, kind of cloudy edge. All right, so I'm not gonna get the whole paper wet, but first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load up my mop brush with water. Kind of get some of the drips off. And then paint your paper where you want the watercolor paint to go. And you should be able to kind of see the wet surface, right? So now I'm done with the mop brush. We're gonna try a new brush. This will work with using the round brush, but just to get a new brush, we're gonna use a flat brush. So you wanna get your, paintbrush wet, get your color, and go ahead and start painting into the wet watercolor. Now, if you want it to get soft, this is where you're gonna do your graded wash, kind of help fade it around or fade it out, give it that soft edge. If you want to leave it hard edge, you can leave it crisp like that. You can help it move along though in the wet area, the wet paper, by doing some more of that graded wash. All right, what we want to do now though is introduce another color. So I'm going to get this Payne's Gray color, kind of put that over here. And then where the two colors meet, if it's wet, they should start to bleed into each other. Should being the key word. All right, so you can kind of see it here, how that color is starting to bleed out. So again, we're just kind of experimenting on this paper. So I'm gonna get more water. I need to clean my water. Oh, here it's definitely starting to bleed. Clean my brush. I'm gonna get that purplish color that I made. Trying to get it to bleed into each other. Again, if I want to help soften this, I'm going to try to do my graded wash. Or I can go back in here, kind of pull it around. If it's going to meet here, it should start kind of bleeding together, but you can kind of help it move. It keeps dripping. Let's get my orange color over here. Kind of add some fresh water onto this side to create that graded wash effect. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry so we can kind of see what this looks like, but you can see the hard edge here where the water ended. If I want to soften that, maybe I'll use my round brush. Get some of that excess water off. So again, you can just add more water right on top to kind of help soften that edge. So I want you to experiment trying to create some soft edge versus some hard edge, bleeding some colors together, using the wet on wet. I need some clean water. That would really help me. Okay, you're just gonna play with wet on wet. Go.